We're Compound Everything, and we talk money, markets, and investing. And today we're talking about a company where everything just happened to go right.
So let's set the stage a little bit for this company. So it's 2020, and everything's just going wrong right now. Like, the planet as a whole is faced with something that hasn't happened in like 100 years. And that's a global pandemic. And what happens? Well, the world loses our mind. And I mean, right or wrong, we're not here to discuss that. But lockdowns happen, and people are sent home from work and school, and they have a lot of time on their hands. And so what do you do when you have a lot of time on your hands? You go on the internet. And so at that time, markets are going crazy, and just things are happening. So there's one tagline that I think could define investors in 2020, and that is Wall Street bets. Mm-hmm. And through Wall Street bets came Roaring Kitty, who we also know as Keith Gill, who was the investor who pushed GameStop, which is the short squeeze and whatnot. And that's how I personally came to know about the company we're talking about today, and that is Reddit.
And the interesting thing about that is you came to know about it prior to the whole frenzy because I introduced you to it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was before the whole popularity in GameStop saga, which was due to that.
Yeah.
But I had come across the due diligence for that. And we actually ended up going long GameStop after reading that. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you showed me, or you told me about Reddit, and we kind of read the, I guess, dissertation, as it were, on GameStop and the short squeeze and whatnot. And we thought, what the heck, let's take a position.
It worked out very well.
Spectacularly.
For all of us who managed to sell before it crashed back down.
Well, and we digress a little bit, but the platform we're talking about is the one that made it all possible, and that's Reddit.
Yes.
And so Reddit, funny enough, is not a new platform.
No, it's old.
It's old. It was actually created by two college students at the time, Steve Huffman and Alexis Ohanian. And there was another individual brought on a little later. I guess he also had a company that kind of got wrapped up in Reddit in the beginnings, and that's Aaron Schwartz, I believe is his name. But anyway, these guys developed Reddit initially. And I don't know if they developed it before or after. The research that I had come across said they had an interview with Y Combinator, which is, of course, that, the startup incubator in Silicon Valley and whatnot. And I guess they came with an idea. I don't know if it was for Reddit at that time. I don't think it was. I think it was for an app to text to order food on your phone. The individual, I guess, they interviewed with Y Combinator suggested that they come up with a different idea. So they didn't like the initial idea of the texting for food on the phone. Instead, come up with something indexable on the internet that's simple, be the front web page for the internet that has, by the sounds of it, again, I didn't use Reddit at this time, but there's a collation of sites, and then you could upvote or downvote and make it simple. And that's how Reddit was born in 2005.
Now, I don't know if this is like folklore or true or not, and to be honest, I didn't fact check it, but a while back, I heard on a podcast that the way the little snoo, what are they called? The little
avatars? Yeah, the little avatars.
Yeah, and the way that little Reddit, the icon, is that he was just doodling in class. And I remember hearing that, and the reason it stuck with me, because I was like, oh yeah, that does actually look like a doodle, because when I was in school a long time ago, those look similar to doodles that I would do on my page while I'm listening to the professor yammer on about something I wasn't interested in. So when was the first time, had you heard of Reddit prior to me in sending you that DD?
Maybe, but probably not.
Okay, so
it certainly never logged in my memory banks.
Yeah, so that was
prior to that.
Yeah, that was like me. I hadn't. So I actually found the Wall Street Bets thing on X, which at the time was Twitter. I'm pretty sure it was still Twitter.
Yeah.
And so that is how I ended up on it. But prior to that moment, I knew of Reddit because every time I Googled something, if it was a question, it was always core on Reddit that came up. So I was a logged out user because I would read the answer on Reddit.
You didn't have an account.
I didn't have an account. I would never planned on making an account, and I didn't have an account for a very long time. But the first time I actually heard about it being used outside of someone Googling and just seeing it on the Google search was when our son was in grade 10. So he would have been about 15, and he's 21 now.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I actually heard of someone using it as a logged in user. And he was a reseller of shoes, sneakers. Yes. Our son was too. But the way that they got a lot of information is that his friend Daniel would spend all day in school on Reddit reading all of
the articles from sneaker
reading
people.
all of these communities and being deep into the reselling community of these people and knowing what shoes were going to drop when and where to get them and what time to line up and if they were going to brick or whatnot. And I was like, oh, someone actually like uses Reddit. And he was quite successful.
Oh, quite,
right?
Yeah.
Our son and his friend were quite successful in reselling these sneakers at 15 years old. They were making like good money. And then I never heard about it again. And then GameStop happened.
Until GameStop happened.
And then Roaring Kitty decided to introduce us to a stock that would go parabolic one
Blow
day.
the top off of it.
So I guess what I could say is we're talking about it right now because it's such a well-known company now.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people use Reddit. A lot of people talk about Reddit. And it's recently been in the toilet because of the
Cesspocalypse.
So we decided, you know what, why don't we look into it, because we're hearing more and more people say like, I found that on Reddit, or I was on Reddit the other day. And when we started hearing people say, I Googled it, and when we started hearing people say things like, I saw it on Facebook all those years ago, that was kind of the launching pad for, it was sticky now. Mm-hmm. The network effect was there, and we've just started hearing, I don't want to call them normies, but like normies say, I was on Reddit and saw this, and that it's kind of like, to us, it's a inflection point.
No, fair enough. And I think to understand a little bit, you have to go back and go back to a little bit of the history of Reddit. So Reddit was created by these three co-founders, as we know, in 2005. But then it was actually sold, I think, for something to the tune of $20 million or something like that to another company. And that company just kind of left it alone and underinvested in it for a few years, it sounds like. Well, quite a few years,
actually. Sat there,
it just kind of sat there.
If you used it, you used it, but they weren't putting any.
They weren't putting money into it or anything like that.
Which is probably why it didn't take the same trajectory as Facebook.
Right, and I think that's probably
true. Which is also why people say you want a founder CEO.
Yeah, well, and interestingly, the founders left. Mm-hmm. So Steve Huffman and Alexis Ohanian, they left and did other projects, not sure what in the interim. And so it just kind of sat there and languished. But the thing that kept it going was its community of users. And in around 2008, Reddit made a decision to do something that is still used today, and that is open up what's called subreddits. Mm-hmm. So subreddits basically take the community and reflect it back toward the user. So the users decide to create communities and invite people, and that's what drives traffic. And not only is it curated by the community, it's also moderated by the community.
And for those of you who and for those of you who may be listening who aren't on Reddit, a better way to explain a subreddit is if I'm into athletic wear, like if I'm into Lululemon, there is, and I am, part of the subreddit Lululemon.
Yeah, and you can contribute there.
Right, now we share, our homepage is like a very interesting bunch of subreddits, and like our FYP on that is so funny because we share an account.
Yeah.
And
so it might go from carpentry to fashion. So I might be interested in carpentry something, and then a Lululemon subreddit pops up.
And because I like to own the FYP, I like every Lululemon one. So like every single like thing like that, or Olo or whatever comes up, makeup, whatever. I'm part of the Lululemon subreddit. These are people who are all interested in the same thing. So on the Lululemon subreddit, it's all people who post pictures of themselves in different outfits, pulling together different colors. It's what's on sale, new drop. I'll also say there are public subreddits.
Yep.
And then there are private subreddits where you have to be like invited to.
Yes.
So it's very, very community driven, and you can get very niche communities.
Yeah.
And very particular communities. And for a long time, a lot of people only used it for news.
Yes.
Or like the majority of people used it for news. I think I read somewhere that Barack Obama at one point in AMA, again, if you're not familiar with Reddit, that's an Ask Me Anything. So just interesting things. But anyways, go on.
Well, yeah, I think the community is what drove it. And then in 2015, Steve Huffman came back, and he returned as CEO and still serves as CEO to this day. So he's been there a little over 10 years.
You want a founder CEO because you saw it get left for dead, and then you saw the revival of it when the founder came back.
Right, and his task at that time in 2015 was to figure out how to monetize this platform, which he has done, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And I think he's done it successfully. Now, in 2024 is when Reddit went public. So they had an IPO, I think around March of 2024. I think the valuation was something to the tune of $6.4 6.8 billion, I think 6.4 billion at that time. And so then that's where we are today. Let's talk a little bit about Reddit. We talked a little bit about it, but what is their moat, do you figure? Like, what is the thing that makes it sticky?
Yeah, so before we go there, I'm just going to say I mentioned that everything went right. And the reason I said it all went right for Reddit is because they kind of came on right when online communities were becoming more acceptable. That's number one. And then they made their app for the iOS. And they realized, like, I have to, like, everything they did was perfectly timed. And then after the app was adopted and people were starting to use it and whatnot, and online communities became more acceptable in general, in public, then you had the lockdown. And, like, nothing could have been better for every social platform
than a lockdown.
Agree with it, don't agree with it. We all have to agree that it was really good for those companies.
Well, people just had time on their hands.
So then, of course, we have that. And then in that time, when we're all already online, we have money being thrown at people like crazy, just like checks. Like in Canada, we had CERB, and I think the States had, don't know what it's called there, but they had checks being thrown at people. And then we had GameStop.
Yeah.
And it gave the retail investor a chance to take out Wall Street, and they were so happy about that. And of course, you guys can all look into the history of that if you don't know about it. It was like the perfect storm. Like everything worked perfectly for Reddit in the way that their trajectory moved when the founder left and then came back and then got it ready for the iOS. And on and on.
Yeah. So one of the things about Reddit is it's a source of information, and I think let's go into its moats a little bit. It's definitely a source of information. There's something to the tune of 120 million daily active users on Reddit. And I think these are logged in users, as far as I'm aware. So logged in, they define logged in users versus logged out users, meaning, so a logged in user is someone with an account who goes on and contributes or whatnot in some way, whether it be to
you're actually in
put
the
a post
app. You're
on
actually
or
in the app.
Right.
You're actually like in the app, as opposed to what I was before, where I did a Google search and just quickly read that, it's from Reddit, but I didn't actually
that would be a logged out user.
Go over to Reddit, yeah.
But one of the things I think the strength of Reddit is it's a huge collection of information on pretty much whatever topic you can think of. You know, it spans the gamut. So if someone has a carpentry question, or I've gone on there and people have commented on deck builds and things like that. So and you go on there for fashion advice, and there's pretty much almost any community you can think of. I think they have something around 100,000 communities
and even within
and subreddits on there. So
and even within something that you're interested in, you just think about investing. You have like our investing,
stocks.
our stocks, our Wall Street bets, our penny stocks, our value investing, our
Bay Street bets,
Bay Street bets. You have our swing trades, like wheel strategy, our theta gang. Like even within a topic, there's like micro topics.
Yeah. And so there's a huge collection of information and human wisdom on that. Well, not always wisdom, but
there's a lot of non-wisdom.
There's a lot of non-wisdom, but that gets voted down. Right. So the purpose of the app kind of serves. So people vote based on the strength of the comments and the posts and things like that. And so that I think is one strength. But I think the bigger strength of something like Reddit is actually what we alluded to before, what drove people there really, yes, to make money off of things like Wall Street bets and GameStop, but as community.
100%.
I think
it started as an information.
Yeah.
And it really and it still is used, like OAI and is it Gemini or Anthropic scrub it for information. It's where they get a lot of its information. And I think, like I said, like our son and his friend were using it for information about reselling. But now it is like hardcore community. And I think the information mode is almost a little weak now with LLMs and whatnot.
Well, and that's one of the bear theses, which we can examine in a few minutes. But I think people go there for community. And you mentioned that there's open subreddits where you can just go and contribute information. But then there's specific subreddits that are actually more so catered to community. And some of these are invite only, and some of them are open and whatnot. So from that standpoint, people spend hours and hours on these sites.
Hours. It's like there's some people like you'll go onto a subreddit and you'll start like recognizing people posting. You're like, how often like do you post it? Every time I open this page, it's like
there's a fresh post.
There's like from this one person. It's like, do you live on this app?
Yeah.
But the other thing too is even in the really large communities. And I'll use, I mean, Wall Street Bets is a really large community.
Very large.
Yeah, and that one is like, you got to really surf for good information on that one.
Yeah.
But I'll use Lululemon. Like, there are 3 or 4 users that I will recognize, like, I know their name because they're always posting.
Yeah.
And they love it, and they're good at pulling colors together, and they're really good at like pulling the items at Lululemon together to look nice. And so they get flares, and every subreddit does it, which makes you feel more part of the community. And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember when you put up this, and you have like these relationships online with these anonymous users. And Reddit's really good at making people feel like this is like real life. And I would argue, I have a whole other argument with that it's not, but they are really good at making you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Right. So the community aspect and just the information that's there kind of gathered together in one spot, like as an information repository, I think is largely its moat. Mm-hmm. And so with Reddit, the question is, as an investment, the whole purpose we're talking about this is, how do they make money?
How do they make? And also, how sticky is their moat?
Like, how sticky
do you think, before we go on to money, let's just think, like, how sticky do you think the information moat is?
Well, that's a good question. So the community moat, I think, is fairly sticky.
I think it's going to get stickier.
So,
and I have reasons for that.
Right. So I think in a lot of ways, online communities are becoming much more acceptable, more common.
They're almost more needed. It's like,
and more needed.
As people don't have children and they're not married and they're home, like, people don't go to church anymore if you don't play sports.
Yeah.
Like, we need...
Workplaces are becoming more online as well.
Yeah, workplaces. You're not even going into work.
So you're not even going into work anymore.
So people are starving for community. So they want these friends. Like, everyone says that they don't want friends, but we all want a community.
Yes.
And so if you don't have real community, then where do you go? You're going to go online.
And you can go online and find people with interests as niche as yours.
Yes.
So you can go find these people in these communities and have a community.
And that's why I said it's like a pseudo community, because real, in my opinion, and I'm not saying you can't have friends online, because obviously you can, but a real community is there for you even when you disagree. A real community is visiting you in the hospital when you're sick, is bringing you food when you have a baby, is there when really great things happen for you, and there when really bad things happen for you. Yeah. And the weird thing about online community is that you can find a group of people who agree with you on everything, and like, that's weird. And that doesn't even stretch you as a person. But I am finding, we watched a couple shows, and we watched 2 shows back to back, and they were different shows, different writers, different genres of show, and each show had a character, and they both said something along the line of, I found my real community online.
Yes. Which
means that people now can't handle being with people who might disagree with them on something, so they're like pulling away from IRL relationships and pouring into
online
relationships, and that is making communities like Reddit
extremely
so popular
sticky.
And so sticky, because if you lose that, you lose your whole identity.
Yeah, I think Reddit in that respect has an extremely sticky moat. Now, to answer your question about the information moat, that's another matter. That's another matter altogether. Now with LLMs coming out, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, and AI and whatnot coming out, people may have to go to Reddit less commonly for answers. So if you have a question, for instance, of, I don't know, I'll go back to...
Okay, I can use a question.
Sure.
So our son got locked out of his Oculus years ago.
Yes.
Way prior to LLMs. And it was not intuitive how to get the account. And it was all mixed up between your phone and his phone and the Oculus. And it was like all a disaster. And we were trying to buy a game, and it said that's like the wrong account.
The settings were all
messed up.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. I'm not super tech savvy. So it was like, so what did I do?
You went on Reddit.
I went on our Oculus.
Yeah.
And I was like, does anyone know, blah, blah, blah. And I explained the whole situation. And within 10 minutes, someone actually said, oh yeah, I had this problem step by step. Explained it to me. I followed it. It was done. I said, thanks, moving on. Now, however many years later, I can't remember when he had his Oculus and when this happened, I would just go on chat and I would say, my son has an Oculus, blah, 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 blah. And then it would go do, 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 do. And I wouldn't have to wait. And
it would be instantaneous.
And it would be accurate. And it would be instantaneous.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have to like wait for some random guy or girl just hoping that it's the right information.
Right.
Right.
Now, one counter argument to that, to a degree, is a user like that really monetizable?
Yeah,
in the first place, right? So if you're just going on there to ask a question on our Oculus, are you really going to be an effective
really good point.
Ad target?
Or
maybe for Oculus.
Yeah, when you were going on saying like, we have this cabin and we have a valley and we need to near our roof.
Yes, our roofing.
Right? Like, that's a good point.
Yeah, so are you actually an effective ad target for that platform because you're going on there for a specific question on a specific subreddit. And leaving, right? So whereas for yourself, who's interested in our Lululemon, our Alo,
and I'm scrolling, and I will say I'm also on our Lululemon and our Alo and our Sephora and our Elf and all those for investing as well.
Sure.
So like, it's not. I am interested. It's actually a really bad thing because I want to invest in all these companies. Or I should say, I look to invest in all these companies, and then as I'm doing, I think I said to you the other day, as I was doing my research, I'm like, I just want to buy every outfit because I'm seeing it while I'm
so there you go. You would be a perfect target.
Oh, I love targeted ads. I admit that I am influenced daily by things.
So the point being is, I think the argument of LLMs and AI and whatnot disrupting that part of things. Could it drive less traffic to Reddit? Absolutely. I think that is probably the case.
But were those
the main income and those main source of targeted ads? I don't know. I would say and wager probably not.
I feel the same thing. That's one of the reasons why ads are really intrusive and annoying on X.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least for me, when I go on X, I'm looking for information very specifically. And I would think the majority of people are looking for news. I try to stay away from news. But like, people that are looking for news and information aren't looking to be advertised to.
Right.
Whereas when I'm on Instagram, I go on Instagram purposely. I say to you,
for the ads.
I want to look at some of the ads. I want to see if like what I can buy. We've agreed that the stickiness is in the community.
I think
that's
so.
Their bigger,
that's the bigger mode. So, yes. And as a repository of human intellect.
Yes.
In essence.
So it has two things, but probably the community.
The community, I think, is stickier than anything else. It is stickier
because, like I said, I think for some of those people, like if you go on some of these subreddits, and someone's always posting, if you think about them, they probably feel an identity in that pseudo
community.
Or in that pseudo person that they are behind the screen with whatever their anonymous name is.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Like that is an identity to them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that can't be discounted, really.
No.
Even though it's anonymous and whatnot.
Yeah.
So the way that Reddit makes money at current is 95% advertising. So historically, a lot of the users have been like staunchly against advertising, but somehow, some way, Reddit has been able to monetize that part of things and deliver ads. And I don't know how effective the ads are. Personally, I don't.
They're bad so far. We were on looking at them the other day just to see what was targeting us, and like it cannot figure us out.
No, but I also don't find them super intrusive. I haven't found them to be super intrusive.
They're not super intrusive, but they also suck. Like I get like banking ads, like RBC. Like what is that?
Yeah, I mean.
I get some Sephora ads, but I mean, and this is maybe Sephora's fault, they're lame.
Yeah.
They're not like when I get an ad on Instagram,
they're good.
I want to say 20% of the time I click shop now.
Yeah.
That is a high click rate for an ad, I think.
I mean, maybe we're just confusing the algorithm in part because we share an account, so it doesn't know what the heck we're doing.
I mean, that's fair, but
I mean, at the end of the day, maybe a really good algorithm would be able to sort that out. But again, I don't find it as intrusive as maybe ads on X. I find ads on X much more intrusive, in my opinion.
I find them equal.
Equally? Okay.
I find them equal.
Okay.
Yeah. I find them, it's not that they're intrusive, they're just stupid. I'm like,
yeah.
They make me laugh. I'm like, this is so like,
bad.
And,
well, actually, funny enough, I think I would rate the ads on X as worse than the ads on Reddit.
Yes.
I mean, Instagram, gold star. Like they have fantastic ads to the point where, like you said, I've clicked on them.
No, it's to the point that I use Instagram not for information, not for keeping up with my friends. I literally use Instagram to shop.
Yeah.
So
they're not intrusive. In fact, sometimes they're informative.
Yeah,
so
I love them.
On Reddit, they're benign. I just scroll past them. I've I've never actually clicked an ad, at least intentionally, on Reddit.
Okay, that is annoying. That is annoying. When you
So,
click an ad by
that's
accident on Reddit or X, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. It's 95% advertising. Now, the other thing they have is an arrangement with Google and OpenAI to, I don't know exactly how it works, but it sounds like sell data. And so
A lot of people are mad about this.
a lot of people, I think, and a lot of Redditors, what they're called, are mad about that, in that their information is being sold to train LLMs and AI. And so people, I guess, would feel that that's a bit of an invasion of their privacy because they ask these questions and whatnot.
I remember when they tried to monetize, and I think they still do, where you buy like, you pay money and you buy like those little things that you
that's another way. That's the third way they make money.
I think they make very little
They
money.
don't make much money.
Because, I mean, who's paying for those? I don't know, but...
But yeah, so that you can buy... So what you're alluding to is little tokens and stuff like that. You can give to subredditors. So
if you put something up and I love it, I can send you that.
You can send me a
and it moves your comment up the page, and then you become like a low-key celebrity on this particular subreddit or whatever.
Which, I mean, might be important to you.
I guess, and it
gamifies it a little bit.
It is important because I am telling you, there are people, this is their identity. It's not just their community, it is their identity. This is who they are. So it really like feeds, if you're that person, it feeds that your ego.
Yeah, so it does gamify things a little bit.
And you'd be lying to say that it doesn't feel good when people appreciate your information.
Yeah. I'm gonna brag a little bit here and say I put a post up one time and I got 50,000 upvotes. which felt pretty good.
Exactly. Right. So now imagine that all your closest friends, even though you don't know them by real name, but they are your closest friends, are all on there, and all of a sudden they all are liking your stuff. Like that's like pretty intense validation.
Oh, absolutely. So I mean, there is something to that. So that reinforces that network mode and the usage of the app. So I mean, humans have 24 hours a day only, and only a certain amount of time of eyeballs on the screen. So is that enough to keep people on that app as opposed to Instagram and X and other platforms? And what was the statistic? It was 5% of people contribute like the majority of the content.
I can't remember. I think it was 9%. 9%. But the thing is, like, it doesn't matter if it's 2%, because for advertising, they're advertising to people who contribute and people who just scroll. And I would actually argue that the advertisers are actually more so advertising to the ones who just scrollers, not the contributors.
Yes, yeah. Maybe I digressed a little bit, but the whole appeal of a network mode is to have these super users on there creating content, answering questions and whatnot. And if they're being paid on another platform and not on one platform, is that going to maybe draw them away? That is maybe one of my bare concerns for Reddit. So if a super user on let's say X can make
make money posting
$8,000,
and then he goes on his subreddit and says, oh, by the way, I'm posting on X now, and they like this user, they might actually also go just be like, oh, I'm just going to follow this person on X
right? So that's maybe less eyeball time you have on Reddit. So that is maybe a bit of a bear case in terms of the network, but that's maybe more
that's
nuanced.
Again though on the informational side, not on the community side. So there's two very distinct roads that Reddit has, which is interesting because I actually think they're one of the few socials that have both avenues.
So really 3 ways Reddit makes money. They make money on targeted ads, the vast majority. They make it on AI training, some and they make it as well on token sales and stuff like that. Barely any.
Okay. Let's talk about the rest of their numbers.
Okay.
We've kind of like flogged a dead horse here.
Yeah.
So let's move on to why we love Reddit, like outside of the qualitative factors, why we would love Reddit from a quantitative factor. And we're not wrong. We don't have a position.
Yet. We're debating.
we partly are making this video because it forced us to look into Reddit.
Yeah.
So what are some of the numbers? And there's actually one or two things that we were like, whoa, this company is like fantastic.
The standout number that really just like hit me in the forehead was their gross margins.
Yeah.
So their gross margins are 92%. That is insane. Yeah. So as a physician, my gross margins are not even close to that.
No.
So I don't know outside of software and royalties that drug companies get any other companies that get those kind of margins. 92%. So just as a for instance, in this scenario,
like our kids have a construction company and they would kill for 92% margin.
No,
and like your practice, like you would kill for 92%.
I would kill for a 92% margin. That's insane. So for every dollar you earn, you keep 92% of that.
92 cents of every dollar you earn.
Right. Yeah. So like that is mind blowing. So the thing with Reddit is the users are the product.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And so they do have some expenses in terms of payment of staff, but
upkeeping their servers.
And
that's always a joke on Reddit.
Yes.
About
their servers are being slow and whatnot.
Like,
so
their servers in their mom's basement. That's always like a Reddit joke. Yeah.
Right. And of course, then there's sales and general and administrative and all that stuff.
But their capex that's the other thing. Their capex is so low.
Their capex is extremely low. Yeah. I think at one point I read their capex was something to the tune of $15 million or something.
Low. Yeah.
On a company that is for the full year of 2025 made $2.2 billion. That number itself just was wow.
So that number was good, but there was one red flag, and that was that all of a sudden they became profitable. It was like negative, and then boom. And not only did they become profitable,
extremely
profitable. So it was like, whoa, why? Like, are there accounting shenanigans going on here? Like, what happened? So why don't you explain that a little bit?
I don't think there's accounting shenanigans that happened. So they went public in 2024, and the reason they were net income negative in 2024 was there was a huge amount of stock-based compensation that got vested at that time. I think it was somewhere in the realm of $808 million of stock-based compensation that all of a sudden floodgates opened, and that is now goes on the
and I mean, IPOs are always exit liquidity.
Yeah.
They're always exit liquidity.
Yeah. So all these vested stock options that have been accumulating for, well, arguably since 2005 now get vested.
Yeah.
And so obviously their net income goes negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's largely the reason behind that.
Yeah. And so now they're profitable. They are throwing off cash.
Huge amounts of cash.
Yeah. They're so from a free cash flow perspective, they're doing amazingly. They have huge fat margins, and they seem to be managing and understanding how to monetize their platform well. Right? They have a long runway in my mind ahead of them with advertising because, like I said, their advertising is not intrusive, but it's really bad, which means it can only get better.
Right.
It can only get better from here.
Now, to add to that, and I'm no accountant, but I did read a post on X of all places where someone was discussing Reddit, and they had discussed how they have a huge amount of prior year losses.
Oh, yes.
That can be applied forward. So from an accounting perspective, if you have losses accumulated from many years ago, now you can attribute those losses now to ongoing income.
Well, you can just think of it from investing. If you have a capital loss, you don't have to claim. You
can't claim it until you have a gain.
Right, and you don't even have to.
Yeah.
Right, even if you have a gain, you can save that capital loss.
Yeah.
And carry it forward if you want to.
So from a tax perspective, it's very advantaged.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's another.
Yeah.
Another maybe kind of tailwind for them.
Yeah. So I quickly wanted to just make sure we got our numbers right.
Yeah.
So I'm just pulling up my write-up here. So their revenue was $2.2 billion.
Yep.
Right? And that's a 69% year-over-year growth.
Which is insane.
So, I mean, and like I said, I think their revenue is only going to go up. Now, I don't know about the revenue from OpenAI and Anthropic, but I think their ad revenue will only go up.
I think it's Google and OpenAI.
Sorry, Google and OpenAI. Yeah.
I think that was only to the tune of $100 million, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a huge amount of their income.
It was small.
Because one of the bear theses is that will that somewhat dry up, or will Google negotiate, lesser terms? But at that point, it becomes immaterial.
Yes.
Because only 5 or 10% of their income.
Yes. And like I said, ads can only get better.
Yeah.
And their capex was $6.7 million. So this year, this is just like for fiscal year 2025.
$6.7 million for their capital expenditures?
Yeah.
That's insane.
0.3% of revenue.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Okay. And then
so they make more and more money selling more and more ads and don't have to spend a penny.
Yeah. And it's and it's interesting because, and then you might think because there is always a fear, right? With companies, like, if you're not spending capex, are you growing?
Yeah.
Like you need R&D. But here's the thing. They're not actually trying to get into the AI arms race like Amazon and Meta and Google, right? They're just trying to be a community-driven platform.
Yeah.
That does require way less.
Yes.
Right? And yet the funny thing is they're totally being used
Yes.
by AI, but they're not the ones that are having to spend the money on
Yeah.
it. Okay. And then we talked about their free cash flow, which was $684 million for the last year. So that is actually like incredible. Advertising revenue was 94% of total revenue. So that goes back to your bear case. Like, what if they lose the licensing deal? It's like,
no big deal.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah. One thing would be if Google started to navigate away from Reddit pages in terms of search.
Yes.
So that does drive traffic. So that is a potential bear case.
That is, though, it drives traffic for information.
That's correct.
It doesn't drive traffic for
community. No.
And again, those are two separate conversations. Yeah. So in Q4 2024, Reddit's daily active users were 101.7 million, which was 39% year over year. But in Q4 2025, their daily active users were 1.21.4 million, which was a 19% year over year growth. So you had 39% year over year growth down to 19% year over year growth.
For daily active users.
Daily active. And that was another bear case. Like, is it going to slow down?
Right.
But it does have to slow down.
At some point, yes.
At some point. And then their weekly active users were 461 million in Q4 2025, which was 24% year over year.
Yes.
That's their weekly active users. And Reddit actually doesn't do monthly active users.
Right. Well, the other thing too is they have definite room to scale their average revenue per user. So their ARPU is definitely, like, it's nowhere close to what Meta's is, Instagram and whatnot.
I think their ARPU is around $5
something. Yeah.
The biggest customer is obviously the US. That's almost always how it is.
Yeah.
$2 something, I think, like low twos for international.
Yes. So it wasn't very high international.
Yeah, but that's a low.
But I think that was increasing.
Yes. But like you think about that ARPU, and that's like nothing.
No.
So again, they have room to grow.
So they have room to grow that ARPU. Even if users maybe don't quite keep pace, if the ARPU continues to increase, then that is material. The other thing I actually found very interesting about Reddit, and this is more of a qualitative thing, is on the conference call, they take questions from analysts, but they also take questions from Reddit.
Yes, I love that.
I love that too.
Love that.
So one of the first things they did was take a question from a Reddit user.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. So I think they tend to be
Buffett-esque.
Yeah, a little bit more shareholder and community oriented. So I think they recognize that they're a community. So I don't know if there was a shareholder that asked the question. I don't think the CEO even knew that, but they answered the question nonetheless. It was from a Reddit user.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, a founder CEO.
So we haven't run a valuation yet of our own. I do think that where it's sitting at right now is, if they can continue growing, as I think they can have that sticky community platform. They can do better with their ads, which I definitely think they can. I think that the price now is probably going to come in at a price that I'm comfortable with, but we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten to the valuation yet, and really you should find your own valuation so you have your own conviction. But what does the street say?
So analyst consensus varies widely. Like very widely.
Yeah.
And I think the low estimate is like $75 and the high estimate is in like the 300s or something. Yeah. But the so-called consensus, as it were, I think is $228.
Okay, and it's around what today? 130?
Last I checked, it was 130 something.
Yeah.
Low 130s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one thing we can agree on is that there is no reason why Reddit should have got punished the way it did when software got punished.
I really don't quite understand why it went from a high of, I think it was 280 something, and dropped down to 130s today. So was that a revenue slowdown? But I think it was more a gradual sell-off. I think it followed a lot of the SaaSpocalypse.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not quite sure what the thesis is there after doing some
it's not
due diligence.
Anything like ServiceNow. It's nothing like Duolingo. It's nothing like Salesforce. Like, I'm so confused as to why it seemed to
Yeah.
I heard once it's easy to know when a stock goes up, but it's really hard to know when a stock goes down. But it did seem to get lumped in with the software companies.
When it doesn't even follow Meta's trajectory.
I know.
So investors have been selling off Meta largely because of the capital expenditures.
Right, I know.
So investors are not liking that they're forking over so much money for CapEx and chasing AI and service centers, or data centers, thank you. So they're not doing that either. So I don't know where the sell-off comes from.
Right. But either way, we like sell-offs, especially in companies we think might be undervalued and give us an opportunity for a good return.
Well, and we followed this one for years.
For years. Yeah, we think might bring a decent return. And we did. And people might say, well, you could have got it even lower at IPO. That's true, but we don't buy IPOs.
We traditionally have not.
We traditionally stay away from them.
Yeah,
and
been burned.
Especially with companies like this, you know you're going to have an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like
this. So this might present a very compelling opportunity in what seems to be a very high quality company.
Yeah. So we'll keep our eye out, and we'll probably be deciding soon whether we're taking a position.
Yeah.
If you liked this video, if you can like and subscribe, that really helps us, and we will see you next time.